Can a team like Ferrari with such history allow to fail again at a critical moment of the season? Is this the beginning of the end of Project 2025 or an opportunity to resurface? Stay, because what you will see today could redefine the course of the most iconic team of Formula One. Even more worrying, the independent analysis of key figures in the paddock such as Rob Smedley, ex-engineero of Felipe Massa, have concluded that Ferrari not only has a technical problem, it has a conceptual problem. The SF25 is poorly designed from its root, and this is not solved with minor aerodynamic updates or adjustments in the simulator. The only real solution would imply completely redesign the rear suspension and, with it, to compromise the general balance of the car, something that Ferrari cannot afford in the middle of a season where each point is gold. All this leads us to an alarming conclusion: the car never finished working. Ferrari, a team with resources, talent and media pressure as few, has been trapped by its own technical ambition. And the worst is that the calendar does not expect. The Netherlands GP will be a new fire test for a car that was born with the intention of winning championships, and today fights not to lose its place on the podium. In the theory, Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton formed the dream alignment, a binomial of pure talent and legendary experience. The young lion of Ferrari against the 7-times world champion who left Mercedes to pursue a last chance of greatness with the rampant Cavallino. The narrative was perfect. But reality, as so many times in Formula One, has proven to be much more complex. And with the passage of races, this couple has gone from being a golden promise to a relationship marked by tension, frustration, and a growing internal fracture that threatens to completely destabilize Ferrari's 2025 project. From the first great awards, it was evident that the two pilots operated under very different tensions. Leclerc arrived at the beginning of the season as the emotional and technical pillar of the team. After years of ups and downs, he perfectly understood the limitations of the environment and had learned to handle the typical Ferrari structural chaos. On the other hand, Hamilton landed with a renovating leadership aura, with the expectation of becoming the catalyst for a cultural, technical, and sports change in Maranello. But he quickly found a more unstable machinery than he imagined. The first sign of friction between the two arose in pre-season training, where their driving styles presented opposite adaptation paths. Leclerc sought to extract performance from aggressiveness at the vertex of the curves, while Hamilton asked for stability that the SF25 simply could not offer. The data showed a radical difference in braking, entrance and traction approaches. The lack of fluid communication between the two camps despite sharing information began to make an awkward truth evident. They were not aligned in how to work the car. This technical gap rapidly transformed into a difference in results. While Leclerc achieved 5 podiums in the first 14 dates, Hamilton has barely added sporadic points. Statistics weighs more when measured under the magnifying glass of the media narrative. Each success of Leclerc has been read as an affirmation of its maturity, and every failure of Hamilton as a disappointment. Within the team, a subtle but significant division has begun to be generated. Some factory sectors continue to trust Hamilton's leadership, but others have reinforced their loyalty to Leclerc as the legitimate son of the Ferrari project. On the track, the tension reached its critical point in the China Grand Prix. During the first curve of the race, both cars arrived in parallel and an unnecessary touch occurred. The impact was minimal, but the consequences were huge. Leclerc damaged his front wing, which cost him aerodynamic rhythm and balance throughout the race. Hamilton lost positions in the chaos of the exit and could never recover the rhythm. After the race, the silence between them was more eloquent than any statement. There were no public apologies or reconciliation gestures, and the team limited itself to minimizing the incident as a competitive misunderstanding. But all in the paddock understood that there was something deeper at stake. Since then, the races have become a kind of silent chess game between them. Leclerc has prioritized to ensure points, adapting to what the car allows it without entering unnecessary struggles. Hamilton, on the other hand, seems to be piloting against the car and against time, forcing situations that in previous years dominated with confidence, but now expose it to strategic errors or blockages of the team. Frustration is visible not only in its radios, but in the way it reacts when you get off the car. Serious, reserved, aware that your time to turn this narrative into a redemption story is exhausted with each Grand Prix. Ferrari arrives at the Netherlands Grand Prix in Zandvoort with an unquestionable truth. He no longer fights for the title. McLaren has taken the leadership of the championship with authority, Mercedes is showing signs of resurrection with Russell in front, and Red Bull, after his adjustments in alignment, has begun to recover part of the consistency that defined it. In this context, Ferrari is at a dangerous crossroads. staying as a contender in the second squad or sliding towards competitive irrelevance before the last third of the calendar. Zandvoort is not any circuit. It is a high technical demand track, which does not forgive design errors or reduced configuration margin. Its narrow layout, full of Pirelli curves such as Hugenholzbocht and Ari Leyendiekbocht, demands an extremely fine tuning. Aerodynamic balance is essential and tensile in long curves, and curve 3 determines both the career rhythm and the possibility of defending or attacking positions. For Ferrari, whose SF25 suffers precisely in these rear stability areas, this circuit represents a full-fledged tactical trap. Climatology will not help. Meteorological projections anticipate changing conditions, with a possible mixture of dry and wet sessions. For a car with a performance window as narrow as that of SF25, this multiplies the difficulty. The team must not only be successful in the tire strategy and the configuration, but also to adapt quickly to the variations of grip, temperature, and wind. In other words, Zandvoort could become a crisis laboratory if decisions are not made with absolute precision and agility. But the real challenge for Ferrari goes beyond the technical. It is strategic, psychological, and organizational. The structure of the team needs a moral victory. Not necessarily win the race, but obtain a result that returns credibility to the project. A solid podium. A classification session that leaves the 2 cars in the second row. A clean execution without pits errors, without strategic decisions that sabote their own possibilities. Something that allows them to get out of the Netherlands with their heads up. Internally, Fred Vasseur's direction faces such difficult as inevitable decision. Continue to develop the SF25, knowing its structural limitations, or to start redirecting resources towards the 2026 car. This decision is critical because what is defined in the next 3 or 4 races will directly impact on the future of the team. Continue betting on this car could keep them competitive in the short term, but will compromise the conceptual development of a new platform. On the contrary, surrendering could now be read as an admission of failure, which would seriously affect the moral of the team and its public image. In addition, there is the question of the media environment. Zandvoort is Max Verstappen's house career, and therefore the focus will be more since ever about Red Bull. For Ferrari, this represents an opportunity. If they manage to stand out here, their performance will have much greater visibility. But it also implies extra pressure. Any error will be amplified, any failure will be more remembered. It is not simply a race, it is a showcase to the world of motoring. The tension is breathed in every corner of the paddock of Maranello. Engineers know they have no margin for errors. The strategists are aware that they must execute a perfect weekend to prevent the collapse narrative from being consolidated. And the pilots, both Leclerc and Hamilton, play more than points. Their authority is played within the team and the validation of their respective positions as leaders of a project that seems not to have a clear direction. Zandvoort can be the turning point that Ferrari needs to redefine his season. But it can also be the symbolic purpose of a campaign that began with promises of redemption and can end up wrapped in disappointment, internal fractures, and the painful need to start again from scratch. What Ferrari is living in this point of the season is not simply a bad streak. It is the type of situation that defines the character of a team and that, in many cases, marks the beginning of a transformation or the perpetuation of the stagnation. The Netherlands Grand Prix arrives at the worst possible time, when internal tensions are on the verge of collapse, when the technical machine shows symptoms of conceptual exhaustion, and when their rivals have found a clear path to evolution. And given this context, the big question about the table is not only what will happen in Zandvoort, but what Ferrari will do with the truth that this race reveals. Because it is no longer about small aerodynamic improvements or refining the strategy in boxes. It is about accepting that SF25 may have failed as a comprehensive project, and that persisting in its development can mean mortgaging 2 more years of real competitiveness. What is at stake here is not just the 2025 season, it is the technical, organizational, and sports credibility of the entire Ferrari ecosystem. It is time to speak clearly. If Ferrari does not get a forceful result in Zandvoort either in the form of points, consistency, or at least clear signs of evolution, the team must make brave decisions. Decisions that hurt, such as partially abandoning the development of the current car to overturn resources in the 2026 project. Decisions that involve looking in the mirror and recognizing that expectations are not being fulfilled. But also decisions that can be the beginning of a new path, more realistic, more structured, and less conditioned by media urgency. Do you think Ferrari should continue fighting with SF25, or would it be more sensible to focus all efforts in 2026? Is this really Hamilton's end in Ferrari, or just the beginning of his reconstruction? What decisions would they seem brave and necessary if you were Fred Vasseur? Leave it in the comments.